Hey, it's Tia Carrere, and you're listening to Kino Kingdom with Britt
and Lazlo
and Rupert. Party on, guys.
Hello all and welcome back to Kino Kingdom. This is episode 121 and we realise that this is actually the 30th episode since Lazlo joined us, which is really nice. So happy 30th, Lazlo.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
Yeah, they did dip. All of our stats and figures really dipped after that episode 91. I got to say, they never really came back. But we'd actually tried to record this yesterday, but we were beset by technical problems. And we all ended up just having a suicide pact, but we came back to life and we started again today and now it's all completely fine. So that's quite nice. A lot of the Arkansas for the last one was Nick Nolte to Rebecca Ferguson. We've had quite a few responses, including one from Utah Smith, which is less of a Arkansas entry and more of like an oral madman's odyssey, which I'm looking forward to playing later on.
I feel like this Arkansas was remarkably easy.
I think some people found it easy and some difficult, but there's a lot of...
I imagine the easy route is probably quite a common thread, whereas if you didn't get that, it would be a complex web of deceit.
I think it certainly was for some people. And so, yeah, I mean, I've got 8, I think we've all got like 7 or 8 films, haven't we?
I do
10.
I do have a few, although I'm
10.
doubling up on a couple of them.
Oh, okay, so they're 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Some of us have seen the same films together, haven't we?
So.
So we're going to be merging some.
We can be synergizing.
Well, you've got 10, Lazlo. Do you want to dive off the cliff first?
Should I start with our corporately sponsored review screener?
Hell yeah.
I think that's for the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Got to get them to keep sending us these wonderful films. I'm going to review Nobu, spelled Nobu, which is about Nobu, the famous sushi chef. It's a documentary. So I don't know, have either of you ever heard of Nobu?
No, not at all.
No.
I feel like I'm aware of the restaurants, but anyway, it's a whole empire of restaurants and hotels and resorts. And they originate from this guy, Nobu Matsuhisa, who started from very lowly beginnings in life in post-war Japan and now lives in a multi-million-dollar house and flies around in a private jet and so on. This is a documentary which is kind of about his life. Well, it's kind of a film of two halves. And initially, I was quite put off because I thought this seems like a glossy feature-length advert for the Nobu brand, but it just about gets away with it by including enough rough edges that you would have been sort of filed off by a committee. And it's about 2 hours long. The first half of which is kind of about his life story, and that's quite interesting because it opens with like a corporate board room where they're looking at different locations that they're going to open in Abu Dhabi and on like one of those man-made islands. It's like a super luxury hotel resort, and you go, okay, this seems like there's obviously a lot of money being thrown around with this business. But then it kind of cuts to him telling his story from like, his dad died when he was 6 and they lived in poverty, and then he got in trouble with the police, and he's like, that food was like his salvation, and he sort of managed to get in as a trainee chef and then started his own restaurant, and then that burned down and all sorts of things. So he's gone through periods where he's contemplating suicide, and then he had a friend who did commit suicide, and like, okay, this he's led a life prior to the sort of the super money part of it. And that was all quite interesting. I wouldn't say there was any real high drama or criticism or analysis. It's just kind of him telling us about his life and his travels around the world when he was younger and dealing with trying to be an entrepreneur, restaurateur, and having kids and a wife who doesn't want to live where they were living. And so it's kind of relatable, and it's all kind of interesting. And for him to then be discovered when he opened up like a restaurant in Hollywood, and then the actors started turning up, and that's when Robert De Niro got involved, who has a surprisingly lengthy, he frequently turns up throughout this, and he's like a full-on member of the board for the brand.
Okay.
And one of the most entertaining scenes in it comes from a boardroom scene with him in where he's missing a front tooth for some reason. And he's wearing like a dirty looking t-shirt, and he just starts, he doesn't like this location at the corporation have just, yeah. And you really you could tell that they're kind of scared of him, and he sort of exudes this sort of anger and intensity that he has in his films, but in a boardroom meeting, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I guess yeah, I see what you mean, Bob, and that's quite fun. But then Nobu is just sat there silently, and he's it's sort of revealed that he's more or less just the name of the brand, and he's only nominally involved in the business. But then he goes to each restaurant that they open up, and he trains people there how to cook and stuff. So he's kind of sticking with the cooking, but he's just now infinitely richer than he once was. So yes, anyway, if this has been an hour long and all about him, and it charted him from, poverty to super success, then I think this would have been better. As it is, it got to an hour in and it hit that point, and I was like, where are they going to go from here? And the next hour of 50 odd minutes is just corporate day-to-day stuff of him wandering around and doing board meetings and chilling out at his house. And it was like, I don't need this stuff at all. This is half as interesting.
What's the purpose of that?
I think they probably got unlimited kind of access. I mean, the fact that they have these quite matter-of-fact boardroom scenes, which doesn't really do any of the board members many favors, suggests that they then felt that they had to use that stuff and just sort of celebrate his success to some degree. But it's an awful lot less interesting than the first half. And towards the end, I was just kind of willing it to end.
This sounds like it should have been a 45-minute show on the biography channel more than anything else.
Yeah, that's what it is. But it's nicely put together, and the travelogue stuff is quite nice. I would say, weirdly, I'm a sucker for food porn, and that it doesn't work on that front either, which is weird. Really? He's making these incredible, beautiful things, but they're kind of colourful, but they look kind of like a bunch of flowers is pretty. You don't want to eat them. You don't like, it's all kind of cold food.
It's not a burger, is it?
No, it's not like a steaming, hot chocolate pudding or anything that makes you go, oh yeah. It's all kind of sterile.
Yeah, it's not an Arctic roll. I had that with some films. It's not a romantica. With you, bloody hell! It's not Kellogg. It's not a bowl of Kellogg's Start. When you watch these films, and it's all like you see, it's cold food, large plates, also like real gourmet cooking. It's really unappealing. It doesn't like pop out of the screen like more traditional food does.
No.
Maybe it's because you're looking at like these sort of shapes and colors, and you've got no context for what the food tastes like.
No,
because it's so sort of
you do not frequent such restaurants.
Yeah,
but also like with sushi, the flavors are really mild, except for when they slather it with soy sauce or like wasabi or something. It's all fish just doesn't taste of a great deal. Rice tastes of practically nothing. So it's kind of yeah. But anyway,
is there any appeal in this film for lay people who don't eat food?
No, I would say it might have appeal to people who want to be chefs or are chefs and restaurateurs, those sort of people, because I guess it's life affirming in that he took some big risks and he took some big hits and pulled through and made a success of it. So I guess in that sense, it's going to be quite interesting. And the day-to-day of him going to restaurants, there is I'll give it some credit. There was another funny bit where he's in one of his franchised restaurants and a guy's made him one of his signature dishes and he's clearly not happy with it. He's going, "You've done, that's not right. Send it back." The guy goes out, brings in another one. He looks at it and goes, "No, you've still done it wrong. Send it back." And you can see this guy standing behind him. He sends it back about 5 times and eventually just does it himself. and you can see the axe just dangling over this poor chef's head behind him as he's like failing after failing. But yeah, and that's probably relatable to anyone who's worked in a high intensity professional, posh restaurant, I guess, but
right,
still pretty niche.
Well, thank you for that, Lazlo. It doesn't.
No,
It hasn't even made me feel hungry even talking about it. I just.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we? I do have a screener as well, but I'm thinking we should probably talk about Mortal Kombat.
That's absolutely fine.
I watched both Mortal Kombats, the modern ones, so I might just quickly go through Mortal Kombat 2021 first, just to set us up for the sequel.
The lengthy backstory.
Yeah. I've got a Wikipedia synopsis because I couldn't remember the plot. Or possibly couldn't understand it. The film follows Cole Young, a washed-up mixed martial arts fighter who discovers he is among a group of fighters chosen to defend Earthrealm against malevolent forces from Outworld in the eponymous Mortal Kombat tournament. So yes, this was directed by Simon McQuaid in 2021. It's written by Greg Russo, who's written multiple video game movies, and David Callahan, whose career goes back to Doom in 2005, and he's responsible for the Expendables movies as well. It's not a good film.
All of the Expendables movies.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
He still gets work.
I know. It isn't a good film, but I would say it's one of those films that seems better once you've watched the sequel and you kind of realize what they're trying to get at. They just didn't quite succeed, I'd say, in the first one. So they introduced this new character, Cole, who is generic at best and completely boring at worst, which I suppose is one way of drawing a kind of wider audience into the universe. They just don't bother in the second one. The reason I couldn't really remember the plot is you don't really understand what's going on, but you don't have to in a way. Like the lack of exposition or world building, I think, is ultimately to his credit, because we don't really need an explanation of how these different realms interact, nor indeed how they're all bound together and who oversees this immense cosmic tournament. There is no tournament, as far as I could tell, in the first film, unless someone can correct me on that. It doesn't appear to be an actual tournament. So, but yeah, this one, well, and the sequel to an extent, are essentially just very expensive video game cutscenes, really, I suppose. It starts with quite an oddly clunky, poorly edited prologue. And so poorly edited fights in general, but I'd say that's one of the many things that will be fixed in the sequel. And just a final thing about this, both this and the sequel have that Marvel problem of death being meaningless because they have necromancers to bring them back, basically. But I think here it's kind of acceptable because, well, first of all, it's a universe without any coherent rules anyway, but also it's consistent with the games, of course, where each fight ends with a violent fatality, so you kind of need to bring people back. But it does still undermine any real sense of dramatic threat, I'd say. But yeah, that was the first one. I was a little bit skeptical about the second, gotta say.
Are you going to talk about it?
Well, I didn't know whether you wanted to take over at this point, although I can do a Wikipedia synopsis of the second film, if that would help.
It's probably brief.
It is. The film follows Johnny Cage, a martial arts actor who is recruited by the Thunder God Raiden and Sonya Blade to join his fellow Earthrealm fighters in an interdimensional tournament against the Outworld warriors and stop the tyrannical Emperor Shao Kahn with the help of Edenian Princess Kitana. So again, this one is directed by Simon McQuaid, although it's a different writer this time, Jeremy Slater. We won't mention the fact that he was credited on Fantastic Four 2015. I'm sure he's done other stuff. But I don't know about you, Lazlo, but I think this one improves on the original in most ways. For a start, it benefits from not needing to set anything up. It's got a funnier script. Because, for example, the Kino character, who's just kind of irritating in the first film, is actually amusing in this one. There are better fights in this one, and there are more of them. And I just think the tonal balance is being met a bit better. They've kind of learned when to lean into the campy elements and when to shift into like the grotesque comic book darkness bits.
And they've done away with trying to anchor it in any sort of form of reality, haven't they? Which, for better or worse, I kind of miss the real worldy locations that the first one had intermittently. But this is all very like they literally look like the stages from the game, so they're not really a...
Yes. And they do actually have a kind of tournament in this one with a glowing spectral scoreboard in the sky.
Yeah,
not sure who's keeping score. It's quite literally an overlay on the screen.
Yeah.
And actually the tournament conceit just means combatants can just be instantly transported anywhere in the universe. And again, not sure who's doing that. It's an unbelievably lazy / efficient conceit, because of course the screenplay doesn't have to explain why two people are in the same place or why they have any desire to fight, because they're just literally transported there and told, have a fight.
Yeah, I wonder who is running it. Like, who puts
Raiden's
the orbs in the sky? Like, because he's they talk about Raiden being a god, and he's kind of...
But he's unconscious.
The defender of Earthrealm. But yes, he kind of gets sidelined. But then, so there are other, even more omnipotent people who are running this thing, I guess, that we never see. Or haven't seen yet.
I say Raiden's unconscious. He gets his throat slashed. But...
well, he's not dead.
No, he's not dead. No one dies.
No one ever really dies. Was that Star Wars or something? It was around when they decided to bring Palpatine back, wasn't it? They had no one ever really dies. Oh God!
Mm-hmm.
And there
somehow
go the
Palpatine
stakes.
Returned.
Yeah.
And then someone points to the picture of Alec Guinness in the background, and they're like, "Oh no, he did die actually." Yeah.
He did actually probably.
There's always one that proves the rule, isn't there?
They'll digitally bring him back sometime. I have no doubt.
Yeah, so it is faster and sillier and more tongue in cheek than the original, I'd say.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's only occurred to me afterwards that the tournament aspect, how they teleport into the fights, and then they have a fight and there's no audience, and then they teleport out, and then they retrospectively find out who won, depending on who comes back and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly like a tournament, you kind of want the crowd there, don't you? And you kind of want them to be on the sidelines, like cheering on and sharing in their defeats and stuff when they.
Did they have any crowds in the original games? Like, were there people in the background with like 2 frames of animation?
In the very first, the 1995 movie, when they were in this sort of, is it the Netherworld it's called, or wherever, it's there's some crowds there, sort of Outworld, yeah. But then not for most of it, because with Kano and Sonya Blade you did, Sub-Zero and Scorpion you didn't. In the 2021 film there weren't any crowds, but it needs to go back to that sort of blood sporty, like baying, creatures just gasping for death. I'm glad that this means that if this is like a decent film, that's good, because it means you can watch the 1995 one and then this one, because the 97 one just feels like a super cheap TV movie filmed in a warehouse. And I remember, I think I covered we had a screener, I think, for the first Mortal Kombat 2021, and I remember it was not funny enough to be sort of campy, and it wasn't well written enough to be passable as like a serious sort of film. And it just
didn't
quite
nail it, did it?
Yeah, it was just a bit of an in-betweeny. So at least they've, leaned into the nonsense with this, which is fine. And Baraka's in it was my favorite character. Does he look cool?
He does actually look pretty cool. He's quite a ridiculous character.
And they kind of go against, I guess, what most people might expect for that character a little bit, without wanting to spoil anything.
But he is thick.
Yeah. The also on the like game references, like there's some fun as well where they're like somebody's been beaten up and they're kind of wobbling on their feet, waiting for the kind of the fatal move kind of thing. So it's full of little references, and And like you say, there's a level where there's just an acid pit on either side of them, just because that's in the game. Why not?
Oh, that's quite cool. It's
I
to
think
lean the fun sort of side of it.
Yeah. Oh, almost to a fault though, because near the end they bring up like one of the characters from the game, which is always like a cheap hidden character who's like a shadow version of the model they used for Sub-Zero or
Smoke?
whatever. Yeah, something like that. And they kind of make a nod to that, but I was like, I barely know what's going on here, and anyone who's not super familiar with the games will have no idea why this is happening. But there we go. It's made for the fans, I guess, which is fine.
Yep.
I'll watch this. And I think I'll enjoy it.
I think you will too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hats off to the woman who plays Kitana, who is kind of a stealth main character in this. Whereas Johnny Cage gets the laughs and stuff. She's kind of the heart of the story, the one who actually has a character arc, and she's very good. So hats off to her. Spinning, flying hat off. Oh,
Kung Lao's in it, is he?
He is, actually.
He is.
Yeah,
he is. That's quite fun. That's quite an amusing fight, actually. Yeah.
How long is this film then?
90 minutes. I don't think it's any more than that. Can't be.
Yeah.
It felt very brief.
Yeah.
It's like any world building scenes or depth. They're just like, right, let's cut that. Let's get rid of that.
Let's film that and get on the cutting room floor as quick as we can. Am I okay to talk about Catch Me If You Can?
Absolutely.
So I watched this really recently. I don't remember James Brolin bit in it. Anyway, so this is Steven Spielberg directed film from 2002, a sort of comedy drama, about a real life person. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Called Frank Abagnale, who grows up with his father, played by Christopher Walken, and his mother. His mother's sort of a French housewife, and his Christopher Walken is a bit of a sort of like a low level sort of con man who sort of keeps complaining about the government and cons his way through life. And we find out that actually the IRS have completely caught up with Christopher Walken, and effectively he's almost sort of a step above destitute, really. And when Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays the son, Frank Abagnale Jr., finds out that his mother's having an affair, he basically runs away from home. And then the film picks up as Tom Hanks's character, who is called, I think it's like, oh God, what is his name? Sorry, it's going to bother me. It's an unusual name. Let me just scroll. It's like, Carl Hanratty, who is an FBI sort of works in the financial crime department, is trying to track him down because DiCaprio is forging checks and pretended to be these different people, like a doctor and a pilot and whatever, and a lawyer, who makes his way around America, basically, just living off these forged checks. I like Leonardo DiCaprio, and I like Tom Hanks, and I like Steven Spielberg, and I remember this coming out. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. And I wondered why I'd never seen it. And I said to Faye, we should watch this, because it was on one of the streaming channels. And I said, I've never seen this. And she was, I watched it years ago. And as we were sort of getting ready, I remembered why I never watched it. But I'll talk about the positives first. It's kind of a sort of a silly, larky sort of film where he's just going on and doing all these, you see how he forges the checks and the sort of close calls with Tom Hanks. There's a really funny scene where Tom Hanks, like, just openly catches up with him, walks into where he's staying with all this like forgery equipment, and then Leonardo DiCaprio, because they've never actually seen each other, comes out of the toilet and just instantly falls into the role of like another cop who's like there to help him and just kind of talks his way out of the situation. and stuff like that is quite fun. Like, it's all this sort of funny. I like it in films. I kind of think of it as like the Bourne effect, where it's someone dealing with something in the moment, kind of getting out of a situation in quite a kind of clever, realistic, believable way that like purely relies on just like quick thinking sort of thing. And I like that. But the problem is that this film is it's based on a man who was obviously exists, this Frank Abagnale, but his whole the book that about his life that he wrote, I think it was called Catch Me If You Can in 1980, was just debunked at the time, and everything he said just never really happened. It was like when sort of journalists and press looked into it, he was just like, again, a low-level con man, kind of like his father, who kind of like forged a few checks and spent most of his life in prison. And, you know, and the film really,
it's
like,
a fantasy of a con man.
It's a fantasy of a con man. And when you're watching the film, you realize the film is quite long, and it's got this like breezy, fun vibe, and it's like the music's quite light and it's not too overly sentimental. In fact, remind me to talk about the sort of familial scenes in a minute, because I wanted to talk about those. But it's so surface level, because what he's doing, clearly, even at the time in like the 60s and 70s, like, although there's no like sort of mobile phones and stuff, he would not be able to like just completely talk his way through these sort of situations. Like, for instance, when he dresses up as a pilot and he goes on the plane and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm the kind of, I don't know what it's called, like a sort of sit-in pilot," like he's just getting a lift to another city to fly a plane from that city, if you know what I mean. And he's there, and you see him until he gets on the plane, and then it'll cut. Or when he says, "Oh, and then he was a doctor for 6 months," and you'll see him like have a slightly awkward, like he'll go on to the sort of ward, and you'll get someone else to deal with a broken leg instead of him, and he'll just sort of run out of the room. And then it cuts 6 months later, and I thought, but that wouldn't happen, would it? You would just
6 minutes. Yeah,
you would just get found out, because if someone asks you any kind of technical question, you're like, "Well, I haven't got a clue, have I?" So it's very fanciful, to the point of it being a little bit distracting for me. And I know you have to sort of, what's the sort of suspend your disbelief, but it happens so frequently in this film. Like when he just goes to bank tellers and he sort of, the film does make some really good points, like how when he's trying to con people and he's basically destitute, he's just wearing like dressed as a little scrubber, they're like not taking him seriously, but you walk in with confidence and dressed as a pilot and people will treat you better. And like the familial sort of scenes with his dad are actually quite really well done and quite touching. Like his father, when he was a kid, he looked up to Christopher Walken as this sort of like, a bit of a wise guy who kind of gets some way, but he's clearly never been that. He's always just been like a bit of a guy who just lives day to day, and is always like rallying against this system that clearly doesn't give a shit about him, and he's just refusing to pay tax and actually take responsibility. And there were really nice scenes when he gets in touch with his father, and as he grows up, and his father's still kind of a nobody who is refusing to, take responsibility for anything. The child in him is still wanting to see him as that sort of hero character, and they were the best scenes, really. But although there's one scene in it where he meets his father and he says to his dad, I've got loads and loads and loads of money, so I can just like buy you a car and you can like we can just, live together in absolute sort of money heaven. And his dad's like, "Well, I'm being audited by the IRS and stuff. If they see me driving around a Cadillac, they'll know something's up, blah, blah, blah." And I thought, so then he just like leaves his father. And I thought, there's a middle ground here, isn't there? You could just like meet up with him and like treat him to nice dinners, or maybe move to a different city and keep on paying the IRS back on the shush, but sort of subtly live a really comfortable life. You don't, or if you wanted to, you could just run away where they can't extradite you and actually be a father and son family, which is ultimately what he wants. So that's a bit of a plot hole, because the whole thing, everything he's doing in this film, like running away from his sort of responsibilities, is like, the film points out that what he really wants is just to like be successful in his father's eyes and be with his dad, and he can do that. Like quite early on in the film, he has the financial ability to do that. So it's like the whole film doesn't need to happen. But it was silly fun. But yeah, I would say you have to treat it as completely separate from the man that it's based on, because at the end, when it's coming up with these like text scenes about how he was friends with a guy from the FBI and now he works there doing it, and it's like none of it's true, and none of the it's the fact that it's like a bit of a silly fiction based on a book that's mostly fiction. On Wikipedia, someone just they just word it really well. I think it's someone at the FBI. They ask, were you involved in these cases? And they say he's not a con man, or like he's not sort of a lovable criminal. He's just a liar. That's what he just says these things, and of course now we have the technology to disprove it all, and it just feels a bit deflating.
Right.
Do you feel like Spielberg is applying a layer of like trying to give deeper meaning to someone who's basically, like you say, just his words are meaningless, and he's just a liar, and there isn't any great nut to crack in his case? It's.
Yeah, I just think it's very fanciful, and the best scenes are it's not like his story and what he gets up to. It's more like the characters interacting because they're good actors, like Christopher Walken and Leonardo DiCaprio and Hanks and DiCaprio. The best scenes are when it's just them acting together, and not the kind of adventure he goes on. That's all pretty. I don't know. It's so unbelievable that it reminded me a bit. And this is one of the harshest things I think I could say about any film. It reminded me a little bit of Now You See Me, where it's just, like, it's like you're showing me a CGI magic trick. You're not showing me anything that's like clever. It's just constantly skimming the surface and finding shortcuts in lieu of actual skill. That's how I kind of felt when I was watching it.
Would it have been better if it was completely just
an original film
presented as fiction?
If they just said this is a film, it would still be silly, but it'll be fun silly. But because it's like you say, Lazlo, it's because they seem to be imparting this deeper meaning onto it that just isn't there. And even if it is there, if he's such an intelligent guy, why can't he just work out a way to live with his father? Why is he? That's what his ultimate goal is. So I don't know why. Yeah, the film happens around that. It's almost like a little character study that's been thrown into a big Hollywood mixing bowl with loads of other ingredients. And they're fine, there are some tense scenes, and it's Spielberg, so it's going to be like really well filmed and really well paced and stuff. But the heart of the film just seem to be focusing on the wrong things.
I've worked on something that was based on a true story, and what was interesting was that there were elements that people would throw in and say, like, we could do this would be more interesting, and then lawyers would say that would push it up to a different level of crime, and so we can't do that because then they can sue you. So it's like implying that, like, a robber abused, like, raped a woman or something. If he didn't actually rape a woman, or there's no record of that, then it's like a not slander, whatever so
it is
you
slander,
can't.
Isn't it? I thought it was slander.
Is it slander? I can't remember which one's the written one.
I think it would be slander. Yeah,
let's go with slander.
Libel.
Probably.
I'm not sure.
All of us are lawyers as well. It's weird. We don't know.
I think it would be libel, whereas slander would be saying, "Oh, you're a neo-Nazi cunt" or something.
And you say, right. Whoa, mate, I'm just a cunt. Okay. Let's reel the fishing rod in a bit.
But anyway, so they I guess the lawyers have quite a lot of sway over these true stories, unless the person involved has, like, volunteered their story, and you have to kind of be careful of how much you fictionalize, and it often entails, like, filing the edges off a story to make it just to cover your back.
Well, that's the case with this. I mean, it's a fictionalized story anyway. Like, it's not based on his life. Like, it's all been disproven. So really, they've kind of got free reign. But instead of just making it more fanciful, they should have just actually thought, well, let's just, focus on what the interesting part of this is. And it's not a bloke running around forging checks. It's the why he's doing it. It's just seemed a bit odd. I enjoyed it, but I can imagine at the time when it came out, I probably, like, read into the guy a little bit, because I always, when a film is based on someone, I want to know about the person before I watch the film to have context. And I think I put myself off knowing about that context. And I think I'm glad I watched it because I enjoyed it, but
this is in the category of Spielberg films where it's all kind of like overly sort of sentimental, like I don't know, cloying kind of stuff that he does in some films, and I cannot abide the lighting thing that he does, where he blows out the windows with these big blurry white light everywhere. It just looks ugly, and I think this is in that period of time when he was doing that a lot. And yeah.
Oh, the amount of bleached lighting in like Minority Report as well. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, at least that's a sci-fi, I guess. But still, yeah.
I think it's over to you, Lazlo.
Oh, sorry. I've already been rambling. I'll
Where
talk
is
quickly.
Catch Me If You Can, sorry? Is that available?
Oh, I will find out now.
Where can we catch it?
I think it was Netflix. Yes, on Netflix.
Right. I'll talk about Crime 101, which is the new crime thriller with Chris Hemsworth, marking another box office dud in the long, lengthy line of box office duds that he's made when he's not playing Thor. So this is a slick but not wholly original heist caper. Chris plays a guy called Davis, who's a solitary, nice guy, armed robber. You know, those people who actually exist, who steals in very carefully planned and systematic ways that mean no one ever gets hurt. So you can see how realistic this is already. Mark Ruffalo plays a scruffy cop who notices the pattern of his heists and sets about trying to take him down whilst ignoring his marriage and his career falling apart at the same time. And then in the mix, they've got Halle Berry playing a kind of a high-end insurance person who gets caught in between the two of them. And then Barry Keoghan turns up to spice things up as a kind of dyed blonde, loose cannon hijacker who doesn't care so much about hurting people in his robberies. And it wears its influences on its sleeve. Like Hemsworth literally mentions Bullet a few times as his favorite film, and he drives around in the same green kind of muscle car that Steve McQueen had in that. And it also borrows very heavily from films like Heat. But this is a much kind of breezier film, I would say. It's high on style, but low on substance. And there aren't really any memorable moments of violence or grit, which is, kind of works against it. There's a love interest subplot as well that's straight out of Heat. But then it's so underdeveloped that you almost entirely, you wonder why it's in it and why the writer didn't just have him have a relationship with Halle Berry's character, who has a lot more reason to spend time with her in the story. Also, he takes it so seriously, like this life of crime, and it's so solitary that I wondered why he would do it in the first place. It's clearly not making him very happy. But anyway, Nick Nolte turns up as a kind of a grizzled, surprisingly, fixer guy, but then he disappears about halfway through, and I wondered if there was like some deleted scene where they killed him off that was then too edgy for the film or something. And it has a very...
he was grizzled.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, actually, he looks... They scrubbed him up a little bit, but there's no hiding the voice when it comes to grizzling. But yeah, so I don't know, it's an easy watch, but it lacks any kind of cynical bite of the kind of films that it's obviously in love with. And it has a surprisingly mild ending that just kind of soured it a little bit. I'd have been quite happy with something a bit more hard-hitting.
Do you remember the music in it at all? Because I noticed it's by Blank Mass, who is an artist I appreciate.
I do. I remember. I mean, it looks very nice, and it has a stylish vibe. There's some cool, like sort of upside down city shots and stuff where there is cool music. So yeah, I don't remember it exactly. It was a few weeks back, but I do remember it having a cool vibe and an atmosphere, and it's very watchable. But it is ultimately the story is just weak.
Ooh, that's disappointing.
Yeah,
it's expensive too, isn't it?
Yes. Has Chris Hemsworth had any hits where he's not playing Thor and he's the lead?
I liked the Extraction. Was that him or his brother?
That was him.
That's him, but that's a Netflix So we don't really know if that made any money.
Okay.
So obviously there was Men in Black International. No.
Bomb.
Spiderhead. I think that was Netflix as well.
That
a
was not very
COVID-y-
good.
Yeah.
Bloody.
It was also not very good.
Furiosa. That was a bomb.
He was in The Snow White and the Huntsmans, but I think they both, well, the first one must have done all right because they made a sequel, but I think they underperformed, especially the second one.
Yeah, he isn't really. No, it's pretty much just Thor, isn't it? Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
that's Crime 101.
I'm not going to
Right.
watch that. I mean,
No,
it
no,
just sounds a
don't
little
be
bit weak. How was our boy Barry Keoghan in it?
He's one of the best things in it.
Oh, here he is.
But again, the story kind of neuters him a little bit when it could have gone a bit harsher, I think. But he's one of the better things in it for sure. The cast is good on the whole.
Where this is on Prime, isn't it? 'Cause I think it's
It
an
is.
Amazon production.
It's on Prime Minister, according to my autocorrect. Must have added that on.
Okay. Right. Should I talk about a screener for a film called Diabolic?
Yes, please.
I really wanted this film to be worse because then I could have called it Diabolics, which would have been an ideal pun, but unfortunately not. So I need to explain just the setup for this because it kind of tells you everything. So this young lady called Lisa is having psychotic blackouts due to unresolved trauma relating to her upbringing in the fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her therapist provides a ridiculous solution. He suggests she goes to the healers in the church she escaped from and unearth the secrets she's repressing, right? Obviously, the boyfriend disapproves of this because it's insane. But then he finds her in a trashed room covered in blood where she's been tearing up the floorboards with her bare hands. So naturally, instead of sending her to a medical institution, which you'd think would be the logical thing to do, he drives her to the middle of nowhere to take drugs with the very institution that caused her trauma in the first place. And they go along with her new age friend who believes in healing stones and stuff. But I think we've talked about these before. We've come across these before. Those movies where the central premise is so dumb, it just kind of casts a shadow over the rest of the film because you're like, well, you've already lost me in the first 10 minutes. And this is one of those films. So anyway, it's actually quite well acted. It's well shot, although it does have an extreme grey-brown Netflix filter on it. So there's some scenes where I literally couldn't see what's happening on screen. And the script is bad. And the whole concept is hackneyed, right? So this girl, she's basically completely lost her memory, which is convenient. So we're just drip-fed exposition over the course of 90 long minutes. And it does this really annoying thing, which is quite common in this streaming era, but it does this other thing that we've also discussed before, where it feels like the script is designed for streaming, for like half watching. Like this character will have multiple flashbacks of a girl named Clara, right? And then she'll tell her friends she needs to find out about Clara. And then she'll go somewhere and like look at a swing and say aloud to herself, "Where are you, Clara?" And it's like, come on. And it's like, we get it. We get that she's looking for Clara. It's like, you don't need to keep reminding us because I'm actually watching the film.
Is this from the writers of Prometheus then?
But I think most egregiously, it's just boring. Like all the events in it are either just par for the course for cult horror, or they're standard demonic jump scares, or just entirely predictable plot twists. And actually, a demonic creature does show up in the last 10 minutes to start murdering people. And I thought, why didn't you show up earlier to make the film like vaguely scary and exciting? It's like suddenly the movie stops trying to be like a moody chamber piece and admits it's just schlock bullshit. And it's way better for it at that point. But this is like 80 minutes of boring dross and then 10 minutes of fun, which I don't think is a good return on investment.
The bit that you've obviously never been in bed with me, have you? With the start of this film where they just take her to the woods and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that just the result of like a writer who is like, well, I've got this idea, but I can't work out how to get it kickstarted.
I have to get this character to the woods.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why it would make more sense if she'd decided kind of on her own that this is something that she just needs to do. Like, that would be kind of be the standard way of doing it, rather than having a healthcare professional suggest it to her like it's a really good idea, and then her boyfriend say, well, there's only one option now. And now I've seen her, like, her hands bleeding and her tearing up the floorboards. The only option is to go into the woods in the middle of nowhere.
When the healthcare professional is telling her that, does his voice keep going up? Does he say, well, there's only one thing we can do. We're going to take you back to what caused the problems in the first place. And then we'll hopefully they will
did seem
cure
to
you.
say it all. It's almost like the actor was questioning the lines as he spoke them. And
was he looking off screen as he was squinting off screen as he was saying it?
There was a scene in this film as well where she's like reciting some or referencing some Bible verse, and she calls, I swear the name is Job, right? Everyone just says Job, but she calls him Job, and she says it more than once. And I'm like, surely someone has noticed this. Am I wrong? But so that was distracting. It's not a very good film, but it's not bad enough to be called Diabolics, unfortunately.
Well, that's the poster sorted for them anyway when they do the Accolade trailer, I suppose. It's not Diabolics.
I think it's released on the 25th for those interested in some demonic possession and 10 minutes of enjoyment at the end.
Where is it? Yes, fast forward to the last 10 minutes. When was I was going to say, where was it filmed in? When is it? Which platform is it out on? Sorry,
I think it would be rental and purchase on any platform where you can rent or purchase them. I don't think it's going like straight to free streaming.
Okay. Is the last 10 minutes is that clearly where they spent the money? Is the Diabolic monster good looking?
Yeah, it's kind of standard, like creepy-eyed, slightly like mottled skin type freaky woman, but she's super strong, and so she can like crush people's skulls with her bare hands and stuff. That bit was good fun because it was like, oh yeah, we get some kills, you know? Before that, it's just like, it's a badly written cult drama type thing with the occasional not very spooky creeping around an old shack type scene.
Is it evidently low budget, or is it?
I'd say it probably belies its budget a little bit. It's well shot, it's well made. All the actors do a decent enough job considering what they're working with. So I don't think it's a complete write-off in terms of, the filmmakers. Just get a better script, really.
Can I talk about the Mean season with Kurt Russell?
You absolutely can.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. It was a real treat for me because, when you come across films starring actors that you love and you think, how have I not seen this film before? Well, I don't think I've ever even heard of it. Have either of you seen this, by the way?
No.
It is.
I want to. Is it on Prime?
It's on Prime, and you should absolutely watch it. So this is a 1985 thriller directed by someone called Philip Borsos. I'm not sure who that is. And it's got Richard Masur, who played as Kurt Russell and Richard Masur reunited after The Thing, because he played Clark in The Thing, and he's the newspaper editor. It's also Richard Jordan, who I believe we've seen in a few films, Rupert. I think he was in one of the, was it Scanner Cop or something? Anyway, and Joe Pantoliano and Andy Garcia in this as well, just sort of as sort of side notes. But the main plot is that Kurt Russell is a journalist called Malcolm Anderson who has got a girlfriend played by someone called Mariel Hemingway. I've never seen her before, but she's taller and broader than him, which is nice. No, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's unusual to see in films.
Mhm.
You know, she's not some sort of like sort of wilting violet. She's got quite broad features, and it's quite noticeable watching this. Like in the 80s, they were just these like sort of, you know, femme fatale characters. She just seems like she could take Kurt Russell in a straight fight. So he plays Malcolm Anderson, who writes for a newspaper in Florida, and he is just sort of sick of covering all these horrendous crimes and always having his name at the end of them. It's like a running piece in the film that he always has trouble writing his name. Like he writes these great pieces in the newspaper, but he's fed up of being associated with just like rapes and murders and stuff. And it's at the start of the film, we find that he's come back from, I think, visiting another newspaper somewhere further up north, and he's just agreed that they're just going to, like, she's a teacher, just pack up, move to this, it's sort of a more sleepy place where he's just going to sort of have a more boring job, and it won't be a sort of sensationalist, but he can at least sort of live with himself. But what actually happens is a series of murders start, and he finds himself getting contacted by the serial killer on the phone, and the killer will only give him clues and sort of will keep calling him and drip feeding him information, and he gets kind of addicted to the celebrity of it. So obviously that works against his relationship, and he sort of paints it as like, oh, I'm helping the police, but really he's just loving the sort of celebrity of it. And I kind of didn't know where it was going to go, but it actually makes some like decent points, and there's some really nice. It's kind of a little bit sort of melodramatic at some points, but it's kind of makes some nice points about what it does cover. Like he's really burned out at the start, and then the way he gets caught up in it is kind of believable. Like it's quite exciting, and then there are some. I don't necessarily want to say spoilers, but I'm okay to say a few bits that point out plot bits, because there was one bit in this that I thought was really, really well done, where he gets, of course, this guy is just killing. This guy's just killing women. He's basically just shooting women in the back of the head, and then he kills like an old couple, and you're watching it and think, and he's getting caught up with the celebrity, and you're thinking, oh, this is kind of a nice sort of 80s sort of thriller. I'm enjoying this, and it all feels quite sort of breezy. And then at one point when his partner is saying, look, you need to stop this. It's affecting you. It's making you an angrier person, and it's getting in your head, and he's using you. And he's like, no, it's fine. And they're kind of matey on the phone, and it's a bit weird dynamic. And then off screen, the killer kills like a mother while she's with an infant. And you just see them arriving at the crime scene, and it's like a 2-year-old screaming mummy. And it's just quite a protracted scene of her, like, it's really harsh to watch. She's like reaching out for her mother, comes like, mummy, please. And it's quite a cold, dead scene. And you realize, oh no, this is actually like an extremely evil man. And it kind of shook me out of my relaxed 80s thriller mindset, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really good scene that was quite powerful, thrown in the middle of it, with Richard Bassour, obviously. And then the film takes a turn. Then you realize, no, this isn't using him for celebrity, or like it's not a pushable. He's a deeply, deeply evil man. Anyway, so the film goes on, and I don't need to spoil it, but there's they are sweating in this. By the way, everyone is fucking sodden. It's just like Miami. Everyone's smoking fags apart from Kurt Russell, and just drinking J&B Rare and clocking back booze, and they are sodden with just hair plastered across their heads, constantly wiping their nose with their glasses are sliding down their nose. I love it. And it's really, really good fun. There's a bit at the end though, and it was fantastic, right? So it's all ramping up, and we find out who this person is, and this person calls Kurt Russell, and we see that this person is in it's like a sort of a gas station on the edge of town, and there's just like a bait and tackle shop there, and they say, it's time for this to be over. It's time for us to meet, And then he says, come to me. And Kurt Russell says, where are you, goddammit? And the killer says, I'm in the Everglades. And it cuts to them in hovercrafts going around the Everglades. And I actually said, hang on. And I I paused the film and I went on my phone and I typed in, how big are the Florida Everglades? And it is half the size of Wales. It's 4,000 square miles. And I thought there should have been an extra scene there where Kurt Russell said, can you be a bit more specific, please? And yeah, of course, a couple of minutes them driving around and they'd see his boat in some reeds and then the sort of finale kicks off. And it just tickled me. I'm in the Everglades. It's just someone saying, come, we need to meet. Where are you? I'm in central London. Right. Okay. But you're going to have to tell me where you are. He doesn't even use three words on his phone. It's bizarre. But yeah, it's a proper, to me, it was a hidden gem because I had never even heard of this film. And when I watched it, the more it was going on, I could feel myself getting more excited to watch it. And I thought, don't misstep. But it is just a really lovely, sweaty 80s thriller.
Are there some good, like, alligator crocodile action in it as well? That's always a nice staple of the sweaty Florida noir subgenre.
There is no fauna in this film as far as I can remember now. So I do apologize.
That's a missed opportunity.
A lot of it is just like them just in like massive newsrooms and just horrible shacks.
Good. Well, at least they got the horrible shacks in there.
Oh, and also, the music is by Lalo Schifrin, so it's obviously good. Yeah.
Nice.
Philip Borsos died age 41.
Really?
Yeah, from leukemia.
Wow.
Oh, good. That's one of those things that would have looked into more of his stuff.
Yeah, because I was looking up his filmography and it seemed each of his films seemed very well regarded in their own way. But yeah, fortunately, died in 95.
Oh, bless him. Yeah, well, this is definitely a corker as far as I'm concerned. This is one of those films that in a few years I would just scrolled across that and think, I'll watch that again. Don't think I won't.
It's interesting that like the scene where they then treat a crime scene seriously sort of sobers the tone, and because they so often get those things wrong with these things, don't they? Where it's like it tries to have its cake and eat it. Like say that he's a really bad man, but then it really glamorizes it at the same time, and
yeah, it's the crime sort of. It's like there's probably more than I can remember. The first one is like you just see him on a beach shooting a woman, and boom, and it's like sort of cuts off. The second one is like an elder couple, and they turn up the crime scene. They're like sort of gagging at the what he's done, and it's like okay. But then the one with the infant, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and because I'm a father, but I just found it really powerful that like it's like raining, and she's like refusing to leave her mother's corpse, and no one's like saying anything, and it's just taking in just how dismal a scene it is. And I thought, yeah, okay. So I thought that was really well done. You'll see, it doesn't glamorize it at all. You just realize what he's capable of then.
yeah. No, I'm gonna watch this. What was it called? The Killing Season.
The Mean Season.
Mean Season. It's a slightly shit name, but okay.
I think it's something to do with. I think it's something to do with either like the weather or baseball. I think they mentioned it at the start, but I missed that. I can't remember.
What is this on Prime?
It is on Prime.
Good.
Sometimes you gotta sift through the bullshit to pan for the gold.
Lazlo. Is it
Was
your
it me?
turn?
Oh,
can't
yeah,
remember.
probably is.
Yeah,
Okay,
probably
I
is.
watched Final Destination Bloodlines.
Which one's this?
The most
Please position
recent,
this in history.
This is the most recent
Okay.
Final Destination film, the 6th one in the series, and surprisingly solid. It manages to throw in a slightly new twist on the formula, which I appreciated, and it manages to rustle up some fun and memorable set pieces and over the top kills. If you've seen any of the other ones, you know what to expect here, but it's done just a little bit more efficiently and on a bigger scale, I would say, than the previous ones. And the opening sequence, which takes place at the top of a sky bar in the part, it's like in the 60s, I want to say, this opening takes place, and it ends up with people being burned and impaled and squashed and shredded and falling to their deaths. It's outrageous and a lot of fun. It never manages to be quite as good as that again, but it's quite an opening. I would say, though, with what seems like they've thrown extra money at this, there is a CGI kind of sheen to a lot of it. It looks like there's lots of environments where they've embellished them with visual effects. And yes, Britt, almost all of the gore is rendered in wonderful, shiny CGI blood.
Wow.
So,
Woohoo!
yay! But at least they managed to yuck it up. Like there's a bit where somebody gets stabbed through the head with a weather vane, and it just sort of, it's clearly entirely CGI, but it like lingers on it where their jaw is just kind of dangling off what's left of their face, and it knows how to like push the buttons to just let something linger just enough time to really make you like go, oh my god, that's rough. So yeah, it's got a tongue firmly in cheek. The characters are a mixed bag where like there's some of them I felt bad for when they got off, because they have some who are genuinely trying to the death list, like in the previous ones, if you've seen them, there's usually a handful of people, maybe like 10 people. This involves 30 odd people. It's like, in the way, I won't give away the setup, but there's a lot more kind of people to get through for death. And there's, so some of them are genuinely trying to, they all become aware of what's going on earlier. And some of them are genuinely trying to save people and do the right thing. So I felt bad when they got killed. But then there are other characters in it who are so deeply, immediately irritating that them getting killed was very pleasing. So it's kind of got a nice balance of those sort of things. There is a bit when like a child gets killed that actually made Nick and I laugh and cheer, which isn't something you can say about many films. Tony Todd is also in this, in his final film appearance.
Good.
And that was a kind of a sweetly disturbing send-off that seemed appropriate for his career. So yeah, this was good fun, really. If you like the other ones, you will like this one. I'm not sure if you dislike the other ones that this will convince you otherwise, but considering it's the 6th one in the series, and the fact that it doesn't feel... Sorry?
Do you need to have seen the other ones? Because I feel like I've only seen the first one.
If you've seen the first one, you kind of know the deal.
Yeah.
That, like, they all start with a mass event of people dying, like a plane crash or a motorway pile-up or whatever. And then it jumps forward or jumps back, and you realize that somebody just had that as a vision and they've foreseen their death. So then they managed to, steer a bunch of people away from that scene. But because they've cheated death, and then that thing happens. So the plane crashes, even though they got off the plane in the first one.
Mm.
But then they've cheated death. So then death kills them all one by one in the order that they would have died in the accident or whatever. So it follows that formula in this one again. But it then is come up with a way to kind of add a new twist to that, which was good. But if you haven't seen any of the other ones, you might struggle to get, like, Tony Todd's character's relevance is
Okay.
based on what you've seen in previous ones and stuff. So there is a little bit. I don't think I've seen all of the previous ones, so I had no problem following this one, but I've definitely seen the first one. But yeah.
Maybe I'll watch them all.
It's a miracle that this is not like a shitty, tired rehash, considering it's the 6th one in the series. So yeah, it's good fun.
Wasn't it the Saw series where, like, obviously that became tired very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like Saw 6 weirdly well regarded? I seem to remember that.
I didn't watch beyond the first one.
Yeah, one, 2, and 6 are the ones that people always say are like, if you're going to watch the films, that's it.
Because they did Spiral or something, wasn't there? Like a
that wasn't very good.
Side project.
Was that the Chris Rock one?
Yeah,
that wasn't very good.
But
no, that was terrible.
Final Destination are always much more tongue in cheek and kind of
almost.
Like
I think it gets away with
really.
quite a lot. Yeah, I mean, Saw has always been a bit more mean spirited, hasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. The Spiral was the one with Chris Rock, wasn't it? Where he
Yeah.
just
Yes.
rocks up the crime scenes and just does comedy skits. We talked about this 4 years ago, quite early on the podcast. I remember watching it and thinking, "Oh, this is going to be an opportunity for him to reinvent." No, nothing. Just
No,
him,
it's
just
just-
being slightly irritating, like he always is.
Yeah.
I paid for that as well. That's what pissed me off. I think about that one.
He's still pissed off about that. Okay. And where is that available?
I watched it on
Bloodlines.
Now TV.
Right. Okay, can I talk about Michael Jackson?
Please.
This is a bit of a double header because I watched. They're both related. They're two Michael Jackson films. First, Moonwalker.
Nice.
The reason I'm quite into Michael Jackson at the moment because my son is really into Michael Jackson. So Moonwalker, I haven't seen it since watching it in the cinema in 1988. So 38 years ago.
You saw it in the cinema?
Yeah.
Bloody
My recollection is not particularly nostalgic, but it's basically a Michael Jackson love-in. It's an anthology of stories incorporating some of his biggest hits from the period, decent production values, and a sweeping orchestral score by Bruce Broughton, who I think we mentioned during the Tombstone episode. He's a bit of an unsung hero. Anyway, yes, very anthology-like. It starts with some really nicely edited footage of like the Jackson 5 stuff, and it's all quite well done. And then there's an amusing section near the start where a bunch of kids recreate the Bad music video, surprisingly convincingly, which so that's quite fun. I suppose the centerpiece of the film though is Smooth Criminal, where we get, which is obviously the full video of that is pretty long as it is. It's like over 10 minutes, I think. But we get like a bunch of surrounding narrative around that, which involves Michael Jackson being chased down by stormtroopers led by Joe Pesci, obviously. And of course, then you just get the Smooth Criminal video included, which is absolutely fine. And yeah, that whole sequence is oddly dark because Joe Pesci's character is literally trying to get kids hooked on hard drugs. Like he's threatening to physically inject them with hard drugs. Obviously, at the end of that story, to stop Joe Pesci, Michael Jackson turns into a giant CG robot and slaughters all the soldiers and then blows up Joe Pesci. So, classic, light-hearted kids
I used to
fantasy
watch
fare.
this film a lot when I was a kid for some
Yeah.
reason because it's not 90 minutes, is it? Moonwalker.
I think it probably is it's probably about 90 minutes in
I always
total.
felt really short because as a kid, I could never understand. In 88, so I would have been like 5. I never understood what it was. I found it like oddly magical because it's like, yes, there's clearly a music video in it, and I got what music videos were, but then there was like a film around it, and I thought it was like a pre and post amble to a central music. It was real, and then of course he
It's
turned
very
into a
odd.
robot. So I love that. It's a really odd film.
And it's
It
a
is.
cool car as well, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
does he turn into a car?
He turns into a car in an alleyway. That's all part of the same Smooth Criminal sequence. So that part is just wildly inappropriate for the target audience, probably. But there are some really, truly surreal segments, like the Speed Demon section, where he's pursued by stop motion characters, and he ends up dancing with a stop motion rabbit version of himself. I mean, to be honest, if you like Michael Jackson's music from the period, because it's obviously 88 before other things happened, it's a fine way to waste one's time, I'd say. Like, it feels like being in a Michael Jackson theme park ride. There's no real narrative, but it's like a series of, oh, that's cool kind of sequences. And yeah, I suppose when it's not focused on his music, it just comes across as a slightly tacky 80s sci-fi movie. Although it does actually end with a live performance of Come Together, so that's fine. Yeah, so that's Moonwalker.
Is it
So I
better than
also-
the Recluse version of Come Together? Or
No.
good.
See how little I hesitated.
What did you watch Moonwalker on?
I watched it on Prime. I bought it for £3.99.
What did your son think about it?
He loved it.
Yeah, it is
Weirdly,
kind of.
I think because it's so weird, and you just literally don't know where it's going to go next, even though I just described exactly where it goes. But for him, yeah, because he knows all the songs, so well, except Speed Demon, which is just a bit crap. But yeah, and the visuals are so odd that it's like it doesn't really matter. Like you don't have to follow any story particularly. Then I also watched Michael at the cinema, and which interestingly covers the first 20 years of his career, basically from 68 to 88. So
hang on. I thought this was a 1996 film about John Travolta being an angel.
Not that one.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
This is the remake.
Yes. This is a biopic. It focuses on the creation of the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson's efforts to go it alone, which was seriously hampered by his overbearing and abusive father, played by Coleman Domingo, who's also his manager. They use audio from the actual performances in this film. So Jafar Jackson, nephew, I think, of Michael, does a perfect physical interpretation of Michael Jackson in terms of movement. The storyline surrounding the performance is kind of shallow and perfunctory, and it sort of begs the question: wouldn't it just be better to watch a bunch of live footage of Michael Jackson and get the real person? Because the story's not particularly deep. It's not like we're here for deep psychological insight. And as we know now, the film has been quite neutered in the edit. Well, apart from anything, it ends in the late 80s. So before any allegations came out, should we say. I think the film is at its worst when it's a series of tick boxes. Like it's like, oh, here's the scene where he meets Bubbles. Here's the hair on fire scene. But thankfully there aren't too many of those, light bulb moments where like the artist is tapping on a table and they suddenly get like the rhythm for Billie Jean in their head. But it is a total like hagiography. Or hagiography. Anyway.
I thought it was hagiography.
I think hagiography. And which is probably a good call for the box office, to be fair, because it's kind of turned into one of these like, how many times have you seen it type films, which probably wouldn't happen if there were moments when he'd disappear into a room with a child or whatever. But there are documentaries to go into the more sordid details of the Jackson enterprise anyway. So this film is designed to show Michael Jackson as just immeasurably talented, morally pure, basically a saint. It's a sugar rush of a movie. And I suppose, I think the reason why it's done so ridiculously well is probably because it's sort of the epitome of escapism in a way, because now Michael Jackson's brand has become synonymous with scandal, and this film is basically returning us to a pre-scandal period, reminding us of like the way we felt when he was the height of cool.
The way you make me feel. That's right, Rupert.
Exactly. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua, so it's, well directed and romps along, strictly chronological. And I think that's a part of its appeal as well. It's a kind of playlist structure. It's strictly chronological, so it's like, once one thing's done, you're like, oh, what came next? Oh, Thriller has got to be coming next. It's got to be up soon. And then, like Bad will be up in a bit. So it's like you're just waiting for that. And in a strange way, the fact that it's so safe and so deliberately oblivious and so linear, it's like it feels almost less revealing about Michael Jackson in a way than something like Moonwalker, right? Because Moonwalker is like completely weird, surreal, and doesn't really have a story, but it was still the product of Michael Jackson's imagination, or at least he came up with a story in that. It kind of depicts his worldview. It's like Michael Jackson looking outward, whereas Michael, the film, is looking inward at Michael Jackson, but only in the surface. If you see what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess Moonwalker is like, it's depicting him as like a tough guy, isn't it? Like he's a sort of a superhero-y.
Yeah, like the ultimate defender of children and stuff. It's like, and it's like it's an expression of him.
Yeah. His delusions,
Whereas this is
you could say.
an interpretation, a very fanciful interpretation of his life. So I don't know. I can see why people are addicted to this movie, but I don't know. I feel like Moonwalker's the one. If you want to get into the mind of Michael Jackson somehow.
Do you remember the Moonwalker video games? The one on the
Side-scrolling,
Mega Drive.
side-scrolling platformers.
Well, calm down. On the Mega Drive, it was side scroller, but it wasn't really a platformer. And you have to. That's the one where you press a button and he opens doors, and children say Michael and run out the doors, which was a bit ominous. And
at least he's not locking them in rooms, you know.
And it's got like 16-bit renditions of like a few songs. It's quite good. At least he's slamming the door, and nailing it shut. And singing his song "Stay in There, You Little Fucker." I think that was more of an album track than a single. And then the 4-player arcade game that was like in sort of isometric. That was bizarre. That was more Moonwalker like the film. That was probably you turn into robots and shoot lasers and stuff. Both really 4-player, yeah, kind of like the Turtles thing. You know, those four-side arcade cabinets. So both the games are fine, but I haven't played the arcade one for a long time. Obviously, I've got the Mega Drive one, but I'm never going to watch this. I like some Michael Jackson songs, but I think Thriller's like an album that's like sort of got a few good songs in it, and then just complete dross. So it's got
a few good songs on it. It's also got "The Girl Is Mine," the one you did with Paul McCartney. Really creepy. No one ever mentions that one, do they?
It's creepy and crap, isn't it? So it's
terrible.
People who say that Paul McCartney was the secret weapon of the Beatles can just lick my balls. I swear to God. But yeah, with Michael Jackson stuff, I would go to like I can make like an album of songs I really like of his, but yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. He's not an album man for me.
No. But yeah, if you're a Michael Jackson fan, check out Moonwalker.
Did he do any other like near feature lengthy films, or was Moonwalker the only one?
I don't think so. There was. Because I was looking for this. Because I thought I quite like to watch just like a kind of like a concert, like, and just in really
like a live concert.
4K. Yeah, I just like that. But I found there was a documentary made in the early 2000s, I think, called "This Is It," and I don't know whether he cancelled a performance. He cancelled the performance they were kind of building up for. So the documentary became much more about stuff off stage sort of thing. And I was like, okay, so it's not a concert documentary then, is it?
Are there
all the drama off stage?
Are there like anything? Is there anything on YouTube that's like a nice like full length concert? That's really weird to think I've never seen that.
I don't know. Maybe because I was looking for something really nicely produced. Remastered with lush sound and stuff. It'd be pretty cool.
If you find one, let me know, because I would watch that.
Yeah, because it would have.
He had a few hits, didn't he?
He had one or two, and he probably didn't wheel McCartney out for any of them, so should be safe.
Before we move on from Michael, they are going to make a sequel to this, aren't they?
Well, it is, at the end it says, literally the subtitle says, "His story continues."
And it's made some money.
It's made a lot of money. And I think it would just have to be a completely different thing, really, wouldn't it? I mean, I suppose we'd get...
Could they, where does this one end?
88, 89.
So musically, that's what?
Well, that would be after Bad came out.
Okay.
And then
so
I suppose his next one was
go.
Dangerous or something, or whatever the one was with black and white on it, which is probably his last good album. But they don't really cover the Bad album, so I suppose they could wheel it back a bit and cover that. Whether they then go into allegations and stuff.
But this is the thing, because they've sugar-coated it so much from what you're saying and what I've heard, then they can't really go, unless they want to do an arc of these films. They're going to have to create another crowd-pleasing, basically sugar-coated.
Well, and it's so conspicuous in this because famously, they reshot the last third of the movie to basically sanitize it. And every interaction he has with a child in this movie is him at like a sick child's bedside, like just watching over them like some sort of angel. It's quite preposterous. And which is fine for what it is,
not
but
in
it's
the
like
bed. It could be worse.
yeah, that would be the deleted. So that's what they reshot.
I did read, or somebody was telling me about what they shot and had to get rid of, and it was something to do with an outstanding legal case or something, wasn't it? Like it contained someone. It wasn't exactly negative about him,
Okay,
but it related to a legal claim that was actually still outstanding or something. And then they couldn't get permission. The case was resolved, and as a resolution of that case, they couldn't use that story in the film. They're not allowed. It's like a blocked thing. So it was a legal issue rather than it being anything derogatory necessarily about him, I think.
Yeah,
But,
well, it doesn't look like there's not even like any kind of vague allusions to any kind of wrongdoing. It's all the villain of the story is his father. That's it. Really, it's all about him trying to kind of emerge from the shadow of his father, which is fine. It's a film and it's like a feel-good movie, and I can understand why they did that. But yeah, it's a nostalgia piece, really.
Tune into the sequel if you want to get into the weird shit.
Yeah, if you want to get into the real meat potato. It'd be funny if they just made like a really harsh documentary style, gritty drama from the second
poster of him dangling a child over a balcony. Michael 2.
I don't. When you guys have finished messing around, can I talk about Ordeal by Innocence?
We haven't finished. No, go on.
Oh, all right. So I give it half hour.
Does that title make any sense?
Ordeal by Innocence. Well, I suppose if you were innocent that went through an ordeal by Innocence, maybe it's just a perfume. Ordeal by Innocence. Well, I don't remember Donald Sutherland squirting any aftershave on his balls in this film anyway. He plays Dr. Arthur Calgary, a paleontologist, but it doesn't matter about that because when I selected this film on Prime, of course, where else? I saw Donald Sutherland, Ordeal by Innocence, 80s thriller. 1984 British mystery film. Yes, this is happening. Clicked it on. And after a few minutes, I thought, have they got the right film hooked up to like the selection on? Because have either of you seen this?
No.
Because what I was treated to, and I timed it for 6.5 minutes, was a small rowing boat moving sideways up a Devonshire sort of waterway with like Dave Brubeck jazz quartet playing in the background. And I thought, I'm not sure if this is the film I selected, but no, it was. And
wow,
the music is so kind of against the grain of the film, but I really like it because I like Dave Brubeck. So it's just like it's these like sort of smoky kind of moors where they're talking about like how someone's been killed and creeping around the docks, and it's just this like jaunty jazz music in the background, really loudly good. But yeah, so Donald Sutherland plays a paleontologist, although it doesn't really come into it, called Dr. Arthur Calgary, who visits a family, like a sort of, an old money kind of family home, the Argyle family, to give a book back, like a notebook back to someone called Jack that he met a few years ago. And when he gives the book back, he's told by the patriarch of the family that Jack Argyle has actually died. He was hung 2 years before for killing his mother. And Donald Sutherland says, well, he couldn't have done that because that was when he was with me and we were just traveling. So that obviously wasn't him. And basically everyone in the family takes in turns to tell him to just fuck off. And he's like, okay. So he takes up a sort of his base in this local hotel, and he just tries to clear his name, even though it seems like everyone in the town is against him, including Ian McShane and Annette Crosby from One Foot in the Grave. Good.
Hang on, what about Michael Elphick?
He's in the movie.
Like a little thing. Let me have a look at who he is. Oh God,
Oh,
yeah. Didn't he?
yeah.
Who did he play? Not Peter Rat. It was. Who was it?
He was in, what was it? He was in Boone? Is that the one?
Oh my God, no! Come on now.
He was Boone, wasn't he?
I know him from something else.
Okay.
I know him from. I'm scrolling. It's not the Kenny Everett. Ovida's Ain't Pet.
Okay.
Thank God. And he was in Supergram as well. Don't worry. There was a Spectrum game of that, of course.
He didn't mind a bit of the brown sauce either, did he?
He didn't mind popping a bit on his sandwiches. So yeah. So I was watching this, and it's just one of the. This is I went through that phase a couple of months ago of watching these sort of like almost like gentle Poirot-y sort of things, and I'm still happy to dip my toe in. And Donald Sutherland's such a great actor, and he's like. It's weird though because he's not a handsome man. He's this kind of hulking, sort of lisping frame. And then women just fancy him in this. They just fancy him. You're like, okay. Brian Glover rocks up. But yeah, a lot of it is just this like jaunty soundtrack and then him walking around misty docks trying to sort of piece things together and work out who in the family is working like with him and against him. There's a couple of like odd bits in this film. Where there's one scene I remember where it's just one of those things where you sort of go, oh, okay. The scene cuts in and he's in like someone's house. It's set in like the 80s, obviously, so it's all like really grim and everything's just like brown paisley. And he's standing looking out of a window, and next to him on like a bureau is a gin and tonic with like a wedge of like orange in it. And then the woman whose house it is, who he's talking to, she's a member of the family, comes in and she's holding a gin and tonic with a wedge of orange in it. And she comes up and they talk. And then the scene, that dialogue ends, and she turns around and walks away from a few steps and turns around and says, "Oh, anyway, can I get you a drink?" And he says, "Oh, yes, I'll have a scotch." And I thought, well, why make such a big? Why did the scene start on that gin and tonic and pan out then? Like, I just assumed that was his. Whose is that? And I couldn't get it out of my mind as the whole scene was going on. Because she said, "Do you want a drink?" You should have either said, "I've already got one," or, "Oh, well, I'll have that one." Whose is it? It's just fun here. It just tickled me. But I had a good fun with it. And the music does not suit it, but it was good fun.
Dave Brubeck had 2 weeks to do the score.
I put it to you that I'm pretty sure he just does new versions of his own music because I think one of them is Take 5. I recognize one of the songs, so it's not written for the.
That's fine. I'll watch anything with Take 5.
Yeah, how can you not? But yeah, Ian McShane is this sort of like sweating dandy who spends all of his time in a greenhouse squirting perfume at flowers and talking bollocks, which is completely fine.
It's the Perfume Ordeal by Innocence.
Ordeal by Innocence. There's a scene in this film as well where, and we talked about this before, like where as if nothing exists outside of the frame, where like someone will be next to them and then they'll turn around and like be shocked to see someone. There's a scene in this, I hope you both watch this. Donald Sutherland is sneaking onto the land to try and get information out of this family, and he's walking through this sort of wood, and he's sort of walking along, stepping on these dry branches, and there's a loud gunshot, and right near his hand on a tree is obviously like a rifle blast goes into it, and he's really shocked, and he looks around like a 360, looks around himself like, where the fuck did that come from? And then you hear a voice say, "I almost got you there, Doctor." And he looks up, and 8 feet away, leaning against a tree in a powder blue suit against the wood, is Christopher Plummer. And I thought, you would have seen him. So that was a funny scene as well. So it's definitely worth a watch.
Is the name explained at any point in the film?
Well, we've decided it's a perfume. I don't know why you're bringing it up, Lazlo. I guess it's like he is innocent. Maybe he's innocent, and Donald Sutherland is the one going through the ordeal, I suppose, because he's really suffering for his art in this, let me tell you. He's also wearing some serious cardigans when he gets back to his hotel.
This sounds
Prime,
amazing.
Yeah.
That's 2
thumbs up from it.
dead cert watches off this episode at least.
Yeah.
I'll try. And a year apart as well, 84 and 85.
Yeah.
Wow.
Distributed by Canon Films.
Very good.
As is the next one I'm going to talk about. It's another like a mystery thing. I think the Agatha Christie, they bought the rights to Agatha Christie to do 2 or 3 of her films, and I've watched them now, obviously. Lazlo, it's back to you,
Is it
Big.
my go? Okay.
I go. Yeah, pull the arm on the fruit machine,
I
pop a
go.
quid in.
I watched Caught Stealing, which is directed by Darren Aronofsky. Not your typical Darren Aronofsky film, this one, which is where he has a stab at doing a kind of Coen Brothers-ish black comedy crime romp. Comedy and romp.
I didn't expect those words in that order then.
No. So this stars Austin Butler, Matt Smith, Zoe Kravitz, Regina King, and a few other faces that you would recognize. But yeah, when I say romp, I had to realign my expectations in the first half an hour because the trailers made this look like it was a knockabout comedy, and it's not really. And the first half or so is quite dark, and it's tonally uneven, a bit mean-spirited, and probably more violent than it needs to be. The opening sequence, title sequence itself, feels over-directed and confused as it kind of match cuts sort of the title cards, which are sprayed against a subway wall with a child playing baseball in some sort of historical flashback, and then swirling aerial shots over the city, establishing where the guy lives, and it cycles through like bits of 3 or more incongruous music tracks. And I was just sitting there watching it going, just pick one idea or one theme and just go with that. Like it's, I don't know. So it feels muddled, and that does stick with it throughout. And in the first half, it really does take a while finding its feet. And I even thought about turning it off, but I'm glad I stuck with it because around halfway through, one of the key characters who was in it very fleetingly at the beginning comes back into it, and Austin Butler, the main character, suddenly is pushed into action and he becomes more proactive, and the story gains a real momentum. And the second half of the film kind of whizzes by, which was so it's very like throwaway. And there are a lot of characters who pop up and they're all quite disposable. The body count is quite high. But Austin Butler is very likable, and you do feel for him because he's constantly being beaten and then threatened with more violence. And he isn't really to blame for any of the shit that's happened. He's only involved because he volunteered to help his neighbor with something. So he kind of gets roped into this all against his own will, but it really like saddles the burdens on him. But yeah, the second half was the romp that the trailers promised. It just takes a while to get going. I'm not sure it has anything very meaningful to say, even though that does touch on themes of religion and addiction and guilt, which are Aronofsky's favorite subjects. But it's nicely shot and nicely acted, and it kind of won me over by the end. So yeah, if you don't mind crime capers that are on the darker and more violent side, then you probably enjoy the ride ultimately if you stick with it.
Did the music in the film want you to make you want to remove your teeth and try and force them behind your eyes?
In terms of the score, I can't remember the score. Is it someone, or are you just referring his other films where he likes to have,
No, it's Idol. It's the band Idols did the music, and I cannot abide them.
Okay. It didn't make an impression.
Oh, that's good.
I think they're a British band, aren't they?
Yes.
A good band?
Not for me. It's not my cup of tea.
I'm intrigued by this because I do like Aronofsky, although I wonder if I would want to watch it if it wasn't Aronofsky.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really
this
matter
would
because
not
he is
appeal to me
Aronofsky.
in the slightest. It was his name and a decent cast, and in fairness, decent trailers that roped me into
Right.
it a minute ago. But yeah, it's just a bit nasty in places, and yeah, but it gets going. By the end, I was kind of fine with it.
Does Liev Schreiber open his mouth when he talks in this?
I think he's playing like a sort of a what they call the traditional Jewish people where they have big beards, so you can't really see his mouth that much.
Well, an
And the other-
Orthodox Jew.
Yeah, and what's his name? The guy, oh my God, names. Who plays Kingpin and everything Marvel at the moment?
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, he's his partner. They both sport handsome beards. And
He's a lovely man. I watched an interview with him recently. He's just a really, really lovely, humble man.
yeah,
does that-
surprising considering he's almost had a career of 100%
Yeah.
playing psychos and bad
He's
guys.
quite svelte these days as well. He does this. I was watching him when I don't know if it's like GQ or Variety or whatever, where they say or talk about your iconic roles, and every time he talks about a role, he ends up just talking about like people who worked on the film and like the crew in a really nice way. Like it wasn't all about him. It was quite nice to see.
Hmm.
That's cool.
He's thankfully still got a really big head, which works for Kingpin. They've obviously put him in like a bodysuit these days, but he's still got a large head, so he doesn't look weird.
We'll have to text him and tell him that. Lazlo said.
He's
Rupert,
good at Kingpin, in fairness. For that is a telly show, which we shouldn't talk about, I guess.
Savellas. Should I talk about one more?
Yeah, go on.
Should I talk about Krull?
Please do. I'm gonna talk about one more as well, just because I want to get it
Okay.
off
Off your chest. Yes, Krull, inspired by the cottage weekend we recently had, where people struggle with the plot. So I'll try and explain the plot. This is a fantasy adventure from 1983, sometimes cited as sci-fi, but those elements are so obviously shoehorned in because of the success of Star Wars, it's not even worth mentioning. It's basically a fantasy movie. So it's about this bad guy called the Beast who's come to the world of Krull to crash a wedding between Prince Colwyn and Princess Lissa. If they marry, their son will control the galaxy, naturally. The Beast doesn't want that, so he sends his slayers in and kidnaps the princess so he can marry her instead. So Colwyn, played by Ken Marshall, guided by an old Gandalf-type dude, must then cobble together a ragtag group of brave fellows to march on the Beast Fortress and get the princess back. Problem is, the fortress moves to a random location every morning, so they need to know where it'll appear. So that's kind of how they're trying to get there. It's this weird inverted setup to this film, I noticed this time, because usually the father of the bride will be encouraging the daughter to marry for the good of the kingdom, right? But in this, the daughter is saying it would be expedient to marry Ken Marshall, so for political reasons. So it is a marriage of convenience, which is quite a weird setup. But by the end of the movie, the whole point is that true love defeats the beast. So it's a bit weird that they'd set it up like that. You'd think they'd just have it like, well, they are truly in love, and then that's ultimately what wins out. But anyway, it's quite a simplistic linear storyline, and the first two acts are basically people saying, we've got no chance of fighting the bad guy. And then someone else will say, but there's this old dude who lives in the woods who can help us get there. So let's go. And then it's very A to B to C. It's got quite beautiful production design and set design, very distinctive locations, which make each set piece quite memorable. There's a character called Ergo the Magnificent, who initially comes across as tedious comic relief, but he's actually brilliant and probably the most soulful character in the movie. And then there's Ken Marshall, of course. He was 33 when he made this. So he's not exactly a boy, as they keep referring to him. Everyone keeps referring to him as boy. And he's got a full
beard,
luscious
yes.
beard.
He's
And
got
it's
a
like,
full beard.
you do not look like a boy. So, and his whole shift from weeping despair to puppy-like eagerness is a bit sudden, frankly. But it's one of those types of movies. He has a magical weapon. The focus on his magical weapon, called the glaive, is just a bit weird because they make a massive thing of obtaining it where he has to plunge his hand into lava to retrieve it, which is kind of cool and mythic. But then he literally doesn't use the weapon for the entire movie until the end. And when he does, it's useless and he needs to use the power of true love instead anyway. So it's sort of a bit, it's like a strange MacGuffin just following around. Sorry, what were you going to say?
What I was going to say was I do like this film, but when I think about this film, there's so much to take in and reminisce about, isn't there? But I think my favourite part, which really sets the tone, is at the start when the old blind bloke tells him where the glaive is at the top of a mountain, and he says, "Well, off you go then." And Ken Marshall, with nary a backward glance, instantly sets up this multi-100-foot high sheer cliff face in like stark summer's day, wearing leather cowboy boots, leather trousers, and a thick oversized woolly jumper with the sleeves pushed up. And I thought, yes, that is what I would wear if I was doing that thing as well.
He did all his own stunts in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, because obviously I watched the making of. Yeah, it's a really good cast, and they're all giving it their all. And I think the script is kind of, it's not deep particularly, but it is efficient and quite clean. And it has some moments of depth. I like the bit where the old guy goes to visit his ex, the widow of the web, and she's so overcome with grief, she just lives in the center of this spider's web. She can never escape. And it's got an absolute banger of a score from James Horner as well. Proper sweeping theme. Reminiscent of his work on Wrath of Khan, actually. And given the era, he manages to avoid tacky synth as well. So, well done. I think it's one of the better swords and sorcery movies in the 1980s, I'd say. And yeah, I watched that making of featurette, which is on YouTube. And it just looks like they had a really good time making it. So, good for them.
I've not seen this film, and I only made it a small way through it before falling asleep when I watched it at the cottage.
Sure.
I remember them walking into a cave, and it was full of like notable actors. Like Liam Neeson was in there.
Oh yeah, they're the band of robbers. So they got
right.
Liam Neeson and Robbie Coltrane and Todd Carty.
Yes, but then they just left them behind. Did they come back?
No, they come with them.
Like you should stick with those guys. Like they're good actors in there.
Yeah, they do come with them. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I should probably finish it, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah. It's got some pretty rough
with the glaive
towards the end, actually.
Does he throw it and it comes back like a boomerang, or does he just point it at them like a torch? I think I've seen a picture of him and he's just like,
he throws it and it spins and it can, I think it does cut through a door at one point to get to the beast, but then he throws it at the beast and it just sticks in him and he can't get it out. and the beast doesn't die from it. So it's pointless.
Wow.
And it's so impractical anyway, because of course it's like a multi-armed kind of circular thing and blades come out the end of the arm. So if you catch it wrong, it'd either go through your hand or just slash your wrist.
Wait, but if you're effectively trying to catch like a spinning buzzsaw blade, aren't you? So the only way to catch it would be to slap it with both of your hands on the sides as it comes to you, hoping it's vertical and not horizontal. So yeah, any other way of catching it, you would cut your hand. Can I quickly talk about Killer Heat?
Sure.
Well, this
Have
is
I
a Joe
seen this? Oh, okay.
It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes, I have seen this.
Yeah, but do you want to take charge of this? Because I've really got not much to say about it.
Oh no, I watched this months and months ago when it first came out.
I'll do this really quickly then. So this is this came out in 2024. It's a neo-noir mystery film, supposedly directed by someone called Philip Lecote. It is based on a Joe Nesbo short story called The Jealousy Man. And every single adaptation I've ever seen of anything by Joe Nesbo has been absolutely dismal. But I really, really like / fancy Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he's so wonderfully miscast in this film, as he often is. This is set in Greece, one of the islands, and he is an American expat who is a private detective, and a family are dealing with the death of one of their sons on the island, this sort of very rich family involved in some shady dealings. And the wife of, there's like twin brothers, and the wife of the surviving twin calls him in because she thinks the family are hiding something, wants him to get to the bottom of it. So she holds him up in a monastery, and he instantly just starts drinking. I gotta get to the bottom of this. He just instantly takes the top off a can of lager. Yeah, and there's the bit of backstory. I'm going to spoil this film, by the way. I don't give a shit, but no one deserves to watch this film. It's like set in Greek islands. It's like these beautiful people swanning round, and I was watching it, and basically there's two twins. Sorry, a pair of twins, and one of them, they both had different personalities, and one of them has died, the other one survived, and I thought, they've switched places, haven't they? The wrong one has died and the other one's pretending to be him. So that's that out the way. There's no reason to have twins in it otherwise. So then what I was left to enjoy was Joseph Gordon-Levitt looking fantastic with like a hat on, or like a wicked hat, going around in like sharp suits, drinking, and on this beautiful Greek island with a narration just droning over the top as he just looks at beautiful people and occasionally gets a bit of a kick in down an alleyway. And I thought, why was this film made? And it dawned on me, all the actors wanted a holiday in Greece. And that was it. And I was watching this film and I thought, I was enjoying it because it was so blatant. It was so blatant what the film was. And the film plays it exactly as you think it would, has a really disappointing ending. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is miscast, but he had a nice holiday and I like looking at him. So everyone was happy.
I've just found my notes because I did talk about this one on episode 92, apparently.
Oh,
my notes were simpler back then. I've written down things like issue with white trousers 3 times in the first 30 minutes. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, he keeps on saying, of course, they were wearing white trousers. Like it was a problem. It's what does Rupert always say? It's like in quirks in lieu of characterization.
Yeah, he doesn't like guys wearing white trousers, and he mentions it a few times.
Yes.
Also, painfully on the nose voiceover with lines like "His blood was on my hands," etc. I also wrote down cliches: looking through a window and seeing a safe being opened.
He literally
convenient.
He's literally looking like on the grounds of this house. He's probably like less than 100 feet away, and there's people looking out of the window. And bearing in mind, it's just him in a white suit on some rocks. So he's so visible. And then he looks up and just sees people doing like absolutely key events all the time. It's just standing this brilliant. It's so silly. Unless like he's just been really unlucky. I'm assuming that Joe Nesbo's books are shit. Because they just seem like complete trash from what I've seen from the adaptations.
The snowman was unreal. Like that was absolute shite.
I accidentally got that as a digital purchase because in old Blu-rays they used to have like a card in there where you could get the digital version. So it was for a completely different film, a good film, some would say. And when I put in the code, it's bloody The Snowman, which is unbelievably bad on every level. And so now it's like stuck on my list as if I bought it.
It was so disappointing because that guy had just done Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was really good, and it had Michael Fassbender in a frosty serial killer noir. You're like, yes,
and then no, bugger, no. So, before we go on to the Arkansas, what are our films of the week? I'll go first. Boom, The Mean Season. There it is, 1985. Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Well, Mortal Kombat 2 was the most fun I had at the movies, but I'm going to go with Moonwalker perhaps, just because I preferred it to the big flashy new Michael Jackson movie.
I swore after last few weeks that I was going to review some good films, and I've taken
And yet-
baby steps towards it, but I haven't got to them. So, oh my god, this is tough. Caught stealing, Final Destination, Crime 101, no. Mortal Kombat 2, yeah. They're all pretty average. Shit.
Nobu?
I didn't even bother mentioning that. Let's say Final Destination, Bloodlines, reluctantly.
Bloody hell.
Sure.
It's hardly bringing endorsements there, but mine was. I even had a backup. If someone hit me on the head with a hammer and I totally forgot about the mean season, I would have just said Ordeal by Innocence by Calvin Klein. So we move on to. Oh, by the way, Rupert, Lazlo, and I've already decided the Arkansas. We came up with it yesterday, so you
really?
don't have to make no. Yeah, don't you worry about that. We've got this.
Okay.
So the Arkansas then was from Nick Nolte to Rebecca Ferguson, and we had quite a lot of entries. Do you want to do yours first?
Nick Nolte is in Tropic Thunder with Tom Cruise. He's in Mission Impossible with Rebecca Ferguson.
Nice.
Which is the same one that we came up with.
Yeah. I thought that might be a popular one.
This might be a theme.
Okay, then. So let's go. So Not My Cousin John said, Nick Nolte is in Crime 101. Thankfully, literally the last film I watched where I'd have been struggling with Chris Hemsworth, who was in Men in Black International with Rebecca Ferguson. Hard to celebrate that one, as it means that I've not forgotten about Men in Black International yet. Maxillarity says, Arkansas, Nick Nolte is in Crime 101 with Chris Hemsworth and Mark Ruffalo, who are both in the Avengers Behemoth series with Jeremy Renner, who's in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, I think, with Rebecca Ferguson. As always, I'll try to think of another, but need to submit this before I forget. And then he said there's a similar one. Nick Nolte is in Crime 101 with Mark Ruffalo. He's in Collateral with Tommy Cruise, who's in Mission Impossible with Ferguson. It is lucky that Nolte didn't pack up acting a while back. Jimmy Automatic said Rebecca Ferguson was in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation with Tom Cruise, who was in Tropic Thunder with Nick Nolte. And he sent in a cheat one. I found another two-stepper by accident, although I was looking up something else. Rebecca Ferguson was in the Peaky Blinders film with Tom Hardy, who was in Warrior with Nick Nolte. Lee Wiles said Nick Nolte was in Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, who was in Pain and Gain with Dwayne Johnson, who was in Hercules with Rebecca Ferguson. Dr. Congo Fighting said Nick Nolte is in Crime 101 with Chris Hemsworth, who was in Men in Black International with Rebecca Ferguson. Weird how both of those films are shit. Ed Wellband said Nick Nolte was in Warrior with Tom Hardy, who was in Peaky Blinders movie with Ferguson. Dave Chod said Nick Nolte was in Tropic Thunder with Tom Cruise, who was in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation with Rebecca Ferguson. And I'm going to take you on a brief 5-message long Madman Odyssey that Utah Smith sent me when he sent in his Arkansas. It's just like the ramblings of a madman in like just banging pots and pans in a kitchen. Here we go.
Nick Nolte is in the first Hulk film that I think is the one that has the total teaser of them bringing all the characters together in the embryo stages of what's become $1 billion, 2.5 decade Marvel run. He's at the end credits. Iron Man shows up. Robert Downey Jr.
Wrong one.
He's in there, and then Robert Downey Jr. is in pick a Marvel film with Chris Evans, who is in Deadpool and Wolverine with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He's in it. He's not in it as Captain America. He's in it in the Fantastic Four. Was he the Flame Dude? Anyway, he's in there with Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman is in Greatest Showman with Rebecca Ferguson. That's a bit long-winded with too much detail, but there you go. You're having it. Actually, while I'm on the Marvel train, you can get deep in the if I'm right on that first Hulk movie, and Robert Downey Jr. is at the very end of it. Then I'm sticking with Nick Nolte is in the first Hulk film with Robert Downey Jr., who is in Pick a Marvel film with Chris Hemsworth, who is in Mission Impossible, the newest Mission Impossible with Rebecca Ferguson. So that's like a step less. Yeah, no, I just it was not. It was Edward Norton's Hulk, whereas post scene with Iron Man, not Eric Banner's first one. So scrap all of that. I just said it's a lot of bollocks. I've just found a loophole in my madness. I'm going to stick with the original Hulk with Nick Nolte in it. Would have had Stan Lee in it because he's in all of them. And then Stan Lee would have been in another one with Chris Hemsworth as Thor because he just would have been in there at some point. So that's Chris Hemsworth, who is in the newest Mission Impossible International with Rebecca Ferguson, who is in Grey Showman with Hugh Jackman. Got her in the end. And apologies that you've just had an insight into my stream of consciousness and thought and trying to get this done.
You got there in the end.
Wow. That was amazing.
If only he had like self-editing, so he could have just sent me one truncated message. So yeah, thank you everyone. So I guess there's a lot of joint winners this week, but I think the winner is actually me this week. I've decided. That's good. I might have a celebratory wash after this podcast. But you're probably wondering, Rupert, what is the next Arkansas?
Yes.
Well, Lazlo and I decided that it's going to be how many Chris's can you get through. So you've got to see how many Chris's are Christopher Walken, Christopher Plummer. You've got to, but you're only allowed one gap of another actor before you have to get to another Chris. So the competition is how many steps can you have? And remember the rules, ladies and gentlemen. No looking online. You've got to get as many Chris's as you can. And if you can go from Chris to Chris, that's really good. But you can only have one non-Chris as a link before you have to hit another Chris.
Okay.
We did think we should probably be better off doing this at Christmas, but that's like 7 months away, and we would have forgotten about this amazing idea by then.
We got impatient.
So this would be a fun one for everyone. How many Chris's can you get in?
Should we call it? We could have called it like the mass Chris event or something.
We'll just play this. I'll just do some like jingly music at the start, and we'll just do the same podcast then. I'll just slow the voices down a bit so we sound 7 months older. that's what happens. So yeah, I love you both intensely. If you want to email us any suggestions or just abuse or just to call Rupert a prick or whatever, it's kinokingdom@protonmail.com. And I'm gonna just sign off, I think, guys, unless there's anything you particularly want to say.
Nothing more to add.
Just I love you. That's all.
Oh yeah.
Which one of us are you talking to?
Hey, it's Tia Carrere, and you're listening to Kino Kingdom with Britt
and Lazlo
and Rupert. Party on, guys.